Okay, blockheads, welcome back. We're going to do the second block for month 7. And the second block is called Card Trick. And it's really a neat effect when you're done because as you see, you kind of get this little V. And the whites are opposite and the turquoises are opposite. And it looks like maybe, I think it's called Card Trick because it maybe looks like cards are folded over each other. So it is a very neat effect, but it has a lot of pieces. So a lot of pieces means lots of opportunities for things not to match up or not to come together. Now, the other thing is it means lots of cutting. So what you've cut this month is out of the green, you've cut 3 1 1/4 inch squares. Okay? And we'll talk about this in a minute, but you cut 3 1 1/4 inch green squares. Out of the white and turquoise, you cut the same. You cut 1 4-inch square, 2 3 1/4 inch squares, and 1 3 by 3 square. Okay, the 3 by 3 square, okay, and you cut the same out of this. The 3 by 3 squares get cut in half diagonally, both of them. Okay, 1 3 1/4 inch square of each color. So one of these, and one of these get cut in half diagonally twice. Okay, so that you end up with 4 little triangles. The other thing I'm going to warn you is you end up with a few pieces left over. You're not going to actually use all these pieces. To do this, what is most important is you're going to cut diagonally one way, not move the piece, and then lay your ruler and cut diagonally the other direction. So don't lift it from the mat, don't move anything, and then you get 4 pieces. Maybe. There. 4 pieces. So that's the cutting. The next thing you want to do is we're going to make some half square triangles. And we've done that over and over. You know how to do that. But what you're going to make half square triangles out of are the green pieces. So you're going to draw your lines for half square triangles on the back of the 2 green pieces. And you're going to draw a line for half square triangles on the back of the white 4 by 4-inch piece. Okay? You're going to match this piece up with this piece. And you're going to match one of these up here and one of these up here. So you'll end up with a green and turquoise, 2 half square triangles, 2 half square triangles of green and white, and 2 half square triangles of white and turquoise. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a break. I'm going to make mine, you go make yours, and then we'll come back and figure out what we're going to do with those half square triangles. Okay? And then we'll come back, we'll figure out what we're going to do because we got a whole lot of things to match up here to make this piece. Okay, so go make half square triangles. Okay, quilty friends, we're back. I've made all my half square triangles. All right, so I have these 4, and I've squared those up to 2.5 inches. Okay, so these 4 are done and they're ready for our block. So we're going to set them aside. All right, these aren't quite ready. I have them made into half square triangles. I have not squared them up, and you don't want to do that yet. The other thing is we've done something a little different here. We have pressed the seams toward the blue side on both of them. And as you see, I've marked one of them for half square triangles. And I've marked it across the seam. Not perpendicular to the seam, across it. Or perpendicular to the seam, not parallel, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to match these up, and what I want to do is I want the blue to be on top of the white and the white to be on top of the blue. And I want the seams to nest. But I really only need to worry about the seams nesting here in the very center where I'm going to sew. And I want them to pretty much be matched up on the corners as well as I can, as well as get this to nest. So I've got this nesting, I can feel that, and my corners look pretty good. So now I'm going to sew, but I think I better get a pin or two. Because by the time I pick this up and move it, I'm afraid. Okay, so now I'm going to sew on those lines, and the thing you might want to do is take a peek before we do this. Only I pinned it, now we can't peek. We want to peek this way, and what we should have is an hourglass, and that's what we're going for. Okay, so I'm going to put my pins back in and sew. All right, so now I'm going to sew in the 2 lines. It's the same process as a regular half square triangle. We just have it made up of 2 pieced versions instead of plain. Be sure your seam underneath is staying down and nested like it's supposed to. Okay, there's one side. Now the other side. Again, make sure your seam is staying nested. Okay. Looks like they're pretty well lined up. So now I'm going to cut here. Right down the center. Okay, and now we have an hourglass block. Okay, this one is actually extra. You won't be using it. So I'm going to press this seam open.
These are also called quarter square triangles.
Yes, they are. And then we're going to square this up to 2.5 inches. And now to square this up to 2.5 inches, it is really preferable to have a 2.5 inch square, because we really need the diagonal line and to know where the exact center is. Because to use a regular ruler, it becomes, usually we would just put it on this diagonal, and we really need to know that we're doing it, well, here, this will work because we've got 2 lines. So you can do it this way, or you can do it with a little 2.5 inch square. Okay, and today I have a really nice fancy turntable. So hopefully that means I don't have to cut across the top, which I always have trouble with. Okay, there's our hourglass. This is the very center of our block. Okay. Okay, for the final unit that we have to make, you need to be very aware that you have to lay them out exactly this way. Okay, and you will have 2 turquoise and 2 white triangles left over. You will not be using those. We'll put them aside. Okay, these are the pieces that were the 3x3s you cut in half diagonally, and these are the pieces that you cut in half twice diagonally to get these smaller triangles. You have to have it laid out so that the white is up in this corner with the turquoise and the green at the bottom, and another one exactly the same, and with the turquoise corner the white is here and the green is at the bottom. So you need to lay them out exactly like this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew these together. I'm going to sew these 2 together, these 2 together, these 2 and these 2, press the seam open, and then I'm going to sew this piece on, this piece on, this piece on, and this piece on, and press it open. When I sew this piece to this piece, remember, whenever you're sewing a diagonal line like this, it's a bias, so you don't want to stretch it. You just want to let it feed through the machine naturally. Okay, so I'm going to take a break. I'm going to sew these together and then come back and show you how to square these up. And then once we get these squared up, we can lay our
Okay.
block out. We're back, and I have sewn together my 4 pieces that I just showed you, and remember, it's very important that you lay them out the correct way. Okay, I've squared these 2 up. I have pressed them, and I've pressed this seam, that the final seam that you sewed, toward the bigger corner. That's so that this lays flatter. Otherwise, that's a seam. If I press it open, it's a seam back on itself, so you'll get a flatter look if you do it this way. Okay, so these are already pressed, and now I'm going to square these up. And this is where the little 2.5-inch square can really, really be helpful. First of all, you don't have a lot to trim on these, and it's very difficult to figure out how you know you're trimming them evenly without this 2.5-inch square. With the 2.5-inch square, I can lay the diagonal line along the diagonal of the piece, and I can put the little 45, the number that marks that line, in the very center. And now I know I'm trimming it so it will be equal on all sides. So I'm going to do that. And as you see, I have this handy-dandy little rotating board that makes it easier, so I don't have to do that cutting on top or over my shoulder or any of that stuff. No fancy cutting moves. I can just keep rotating it and cutting. Okay, so there's another one. And here's the final one. Again, I'm going to put the diagonal line on the diagonal here, and the 45, the little 45 number right in the middle, and trim off any extra that I have. Mostly it's those little tails, and they're kind of stubborn. They don't like to be trimmed. All right. See, I told you the little tails don't like to come off. Go back and trim them off. There. And there. Now they're gone. All right. So what we have is 1 hourglass unit or quarter square triangle, and that's the very center of our block. Okay, and then we have our half square triangles, and they're the corners. And they're the corners, and the green always goes to the outside. So I'm going to put them like that with the green on the outside, only I've got to put these opposite, the turquoise opposite and the white opposite. All right, now hopefully these go correctly in between. There we go. That looks good. This one goes here. It's kind of a one goes here, and this one goes here. All right, now we've got the little card trick thing going on. Okay, so the next step, you all know what to do. You're going to sew these 3 together, these 3 together, and these 3 together. Press them for nesting, and then sew your rows together, and you should come out